What's going on there, everyone? Well, back to Obamacare. Now, the Affordable Care Act is something that I just can't stand even the thought of having government health care. Now, if we go through history and these different countries that have government health care, let's focus on the bigger countries like our own, because there are some small Nordic countries, which the left loves to point out, that say yes, they have a successful government run healthcare system. Yes, they do, for the most part. It's still not the best. It's not as good as our healthcare system is now. You're not afforded some of the same benefits. But also, these nations, these Nordic nations, are a lot smaller than the U.S. population-wise. So yeah, they can afford it. They can actually afford to handle it. Now, when you're dealing with a country of 330 plus million people, it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to deal with that massive. That's a massive number. But I don't know. There's something about just whenever the government gets into anything, we can see, you can see it in a lot of things. Whenever the government gets involved in anything, it muddles the process so bad that it usually either becomes so ungodly that no one uses it or it dreads using it, such as, local DMVs. Think about that. Yeah, that'll pretty much be how your healthcare system's run. And it's very much like DMV. Ask someone like Steven Crowder, who comes from Canada and knows the Canadian healthcare system, which is kind of what the American left wants here. Doesn't work out well. You sit there and waiting, and a lot of people die waiting. Especially when you have cancer and it's going to take you 6 months to see a specialist or something. A lot of situations, you don't have time for that. But yeah, put the government involved, involve the government in our medical system, and you will see the further degradation of our medical system. It's already a rough shot as it is, We need probably a little bit more regulation on certain things. Definitely need drug prices to come down and stuff like that. And just simple services shouldn't cost that much. You go to a hospital and get one aspirin, it costs you $200-300 for an aspirin. That's criminal, in my opinion. And I think in a lot of people's opinions. That's not right. So yes, there does need to be some changes, but I think for the most part the government should keep their greedy little hands out of it. We are a nation that's already $22 trillion in debt. Yeah, let's let the government run healthcare for everybody. That'll work. But let's get into this story because it's a little bit lengthy. I'm going to try to speed through it as fast as I can. Blue states will turn to Supreme Court after appeals court strikes down Obamacare mandate. This is the mandate that makes Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, unconstitutional, which has already been struck down, I do believe, twice already, possibly 3 times, but I know it's been struck down as being unconstitutional, the individual mandate, twice. So let's check it out. California and a coalition of blue states defending the Affordable Care Act told a federal judge Friday that they will appeal a lower court order striking down the individual mandate to the Supreme Court. A 3-judge panel of the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed Wednesday a trial judge's decision invalidating the mandate, saying it can no longer be justified as a tax because of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. The mandate and the rest of the ACA will remain in effect, however, because the trial judge put his own decision on hold while litigation continues. In the light of the ongoing uncertainty, confusion, and potential disruption caused by this litigation, the state intervener defendants plan to promptly seek further review of the Fifth Circuit Court's decision in the United States Supreme Court. Now, this could really backfire on these Democrats. Could really backfire because, as we all know, when it comes to the Supreme Court, Trump's done a very good job of appointing our 2 newest Supreme Court justices, with Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. But we've also seen that just because we have a little bit of a majority in the Supreme Court does not mean that they're going to always go towards the right. Still doesn't work out like that. But when it comes to this situation, I don't even think people on your Ruth Bader Ginsburgs and whatnot on the left are going to be able to say it's not unconstitutional, because when the government's forcing you to pay for something, that's a little bit yeah. The blue state wrote in a legal filing about the Supreme Court shit. The state intervener defendants understand this court's prior orders as confirming that the ACA will remain in effect at least until the completion of the appellate review of this court's partial final judgment. Friday's filing was generally expected. California Attorney General Javier Becerra strongly indicated he would seek Supreme Court review, pending consultation with other attorney generals. Well, that it's very shocking that they actually want to take this to the Supreme Court. You would think if two lower courts deemed the individual mandate unconstitutional, what makes them think that a higher court's not going to do the same thing? I could understand if it was just one, but I do believe it was two throughout the years that have said, this is unconstitutional. It was the whole reason this has been brought up, is because a small court in Texas found this to be unconstitutional. So it's a little weird that they don't just obviously see it. Two individual plaintiffs and 18 red states led by Texas commenced the lawsuit in February 2018. The Blue State Coalition intervened in the dispute and took up defense of the ACA after the Trump administration refused to defend the law in court. That move was unusual since the Department of Justice defends federal statutes in court. The Fifth Circuit Court provided an off-ramp of sorts for the Supreme Court. While the panel struck down the mandate, it returned the dispute to a federal trial judge for further proceedings on a legal question called severability. That means the trial judge must decide whether the rest of the ACA can stand even though the mandate has been invalidated. The Supreme Court generally does not hear cases until all proceedings in the lower courts are complete. As such, the justices can deny the appeal pursuant to its ordinary operational practices, or operating, whatever, and allow the lower courts to finish their work before hearing the dispute at some future date. The High Court's docket is already heavy on politically sensitive cases. By June, the justices will issue decisions on President Donald Trump's bid to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA, which I do believe should be ended, and the rest of the workplace bias laws, Louisiana abortion regulations, and the Second Amendment, all which are very important to be dealing with. The court is also grappling with another ACA case which involves the government's failure to reimburse insurers on the Obamacare exchanges. Like I said, that last sentence is perfect reason why the government shouldn't be involved. Whenever they get involved, they screw something up. You can see by this the government's failure to reimburse insurers on the Obamacare exchanges. Exactly. Good job, government. Good job of showing that, oh yeah, the government can do healthcare. Leave the government out of it. Regulate the healthcare industry to make it actually work better. I get it. I mean, I'm not one big for regulations, but the medical system, yeah, I get it. It doesn't work for everybody. I mean, I don't go to the doctor much because I try to stay relatively healthy. You take care of yourself, you won't have to worry about but so much. Yes, the occasional sickness will creep in or something like that, or the emergency that you don't plan for. But you should always plan for those. I scream almost every day, self-accountability. Plan ahead. Save money. Put money to the side. Put up, get a bank account, a savings account with somewhere that's not your normal banking situation, and put $10 every paycheck into it. Do your own health savings account. You don't have to be part of an insurance company if you don't want to. But, you know, do whatever you think's right. Do whatever you think's right. If you want to go on and get Obamacare or the Affordable Care stuff, go on there and sign up for it. That doesn't bother me. It's there. So, I mean, if you want to use it, go for it. See if it's worth a darn. I don't think it is. From most people that I know who signed up to it, just the sign-up process was like pulling teeth. So, I don't know. All I do know is that whenever the government gets their hands on anything, they ruin it or inevitably make it worse in some fashion. So, I think we just need to reform the medical industry as it stands now instead of trying to completely change the way it is, by making the government control it. But I don't know, I'd love to hear your comments on this, I'd like to hear your opinions. Because I have a good feeling a lot of you will differ from how I feel on this. But yeah, through dialogue we can get something done. As always, like, share, and subscribe, and I will catch y'all on the flip side.